I'm a little bit early, but that is so much better than being a little late. So I know you all will pop on and yeah, just join me when you want to. So I'm going to go ahead, share my screen. And if you have questions, just ask. You know how this works. I do the math. In this case, we're doing math this week, and you ask questions or just watch. So let's share my screen. I guess I am a little early, but that's okay. Boop. And, you know, there it is. This is why we do things early. All right, we are good. You all can see my iPad. And wait, can you? I hope so. I certainly hope so. If you can't, just let me know in the Zoom that that is what you are not seeing. All right, I think I'm good. There's got to be a better way, y'all. There just has to be a better way to do this. So we left off doing the math problems here. So we're on number 83. Numero 83. Let's make it big. Improvements were made to an investment property that included replacing the roof for $20,000, painting the exterior for $5,000, and replacing the HVAC system for $7,500. The economic life of these improvements is 20 years. Assuming the straight line method of depreciation, what is allowable annual depreciation for these expenses? Now, I will say in all my years of teaching and doing this math, I usually don't see problems where you're going to have to come up with how much can I depreciate on my expenses. That one seems a little weird. Usually what they'll say is, hey, the property is worth, let's say the property has a value of, I don't know, $795,000. And if you're doing the straight line method of depreciation, you're trying to figure out how much you're losing every single month, right? So, boop, 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 boop. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything here. We've got our roof for 20,000, painting. I don't think we can write that off. And then the HVAC of $7,500. And we've got 20 years. Well, let's make sure that you all understand what this means. If we had a property value of 795, we'd be taking the 795 and saying, hey, in year one, when it's brand new, this is the value. And then when we get all the way 20 years later, it's worth nothing. So you want to find out, well, how much am I going to lose each year? That is what the straight line depreciation is about. Now, again, not everybody's going to have this math on their test, but for those states that do, you do see this problem pretty often. So this is really easy because if I were to do that, I would say 795 divided by 20. And I get my calculator, divided by 20. And that gives me, excuse me, $39,750. That would be the answer if we did what most of the time we would see for these problems, right? But since that's not what they're doing, let's do what they're asking me to do, which is going to be my guess. We're just going to add all three of these things together and then divide by 20 because those expenses, hey, so I'm going to take the $20,000 plus the $5,000 plus the $7,500, and that's going to give me 25. So 25 plus 7, what is that, 32,000? Is that 32,000? Oh, 32,500. Doop. Oh, I'm in the poop, 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 poop. Mm, let's just add that up because Lord knows I don't do math off the top of my head. Actually, yep, 32.5. That's good. And then I'm going to take that 32.5 divided by 20. And when I do that, I get 1625, which would be our answer A, which if I did it right, that should be our answer. No promises, but let's see. 1625. Hey, I got it right. I got it right. Hey, I got it right. Okay, that's fun. I know. What can I say? So, mm, mm, mm. Oh, Caroline, are you still hearing an echo? If anybody else is hearing an echo, just let me know. If anybody's hearing an echo, just tell me. Um, eh, so
I
there
heard
you
it
go.
echo because it was on the YouTube as well.
I got you. All right, cool beans. Hey, look, I don't know if you want more of me or less of me, but hey, that works. It's whatever, girl. You know we're gonna work it out. All
Okay.
right, let's do our next one. A property takes a portion of a township with the following property description. The northeast quarter of the northeast west quarter of section 14, range 3, west township to south. How many acres is in the property? If you see one of these problems, great. This math is so easy. If you don't have math, like I know Caroline's in California, she wouldn't have this math. It's still a good review of the numbers you're going to need for the test. And the easiest way to do this is I would go through and I would rewrite this. Northeast quarter of the northwest quarter of section 14. And this is a problem where you want to go backwards. Just like when we talked about the government rectangular survey system and you had sections, and then, this was one, and this is two, and this is three, and this is four, and that was five, and then that was six, and that was seven. You know how we started from right to left for numbering our in our section? Right. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. So we're going to be doing the same thing. We know that there's 640 acres in a township. Okay, now I'm just messing up numbers. Let me write this down correctly. We know that a township has 36 sections, and each section has 640 acres. There, that's correct. So, what we know, if section 14, they didn't say it's a special section or anything like that, we're going to just say, oh, there's 640 acres in that section. If you bought the entire section, it would be 640 acres. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a quarter of that section 14. So I'm going to do 640 divided by 4. We're taking that 640 and quartering it. And when you take that 640 and you quarter it, you get divided by 4, 160. I knew that. So if you bought a quarter of a section, kind of like when people are buying, now because everything is so expensive, people buy meats and they buy, but like the whole cow, you can get a whole cow, you can get a half cow, you can get a quarter cow, you can get an eighth cow, which is so much cheaper. Same concept. You started with 640 acres. Now we're down to 160 acres. But we didn't get a whole quarter of a section. We got a quarter of that section. So I'm going to take that 160 and divide by 4, and that's going to give me 40. So 40 acres is my answer, and that's going to be C right here. If by chance this problem had gone out, and maybe it had said in the southwest quarter. Let's pretend it did that. Then we would just take that 40 and divide that by 4. You just keep dividing by 4 until you get to the answer. We like that. It's an easy one. As long as you remember 640 acres, you need to know that number if you are, no, you all studying for this exam. 640 acres are what are in a section. And we remember there's 43,560 square feet in a acre. There we go. Oh. A 12-unit commercial property that generates $300,000 in gross annual income recently sold to a new investor. The gross income multiplier is 4. What was the sales price? Again, this is one of those questions where if you get this, thumbs up. Oh, wait, we got something in the chat. What do you say? Yeah, 36 sections. You got that, Caroline. Look at you. You are so ready for this test. All right. So we like a GIM because GIM tells you exactly what it is. It is a gross rent multiplier. So that means you know what it is. If you take that GRM number and you multiply it by the gross rent, you will get the value. It's telling you that it's a 12-unit commercial property and it's $300,000 and the GIM is 4. So I said gross rent, and that should be gross income. My bad. The gross income or the gross rent multiplier are basically the same thing, just different words. Boop. So if our gross income multiplier is 4, we do 4 times whatever the gross rent is. So that's going to be annual, 300,000. And that's going to give us $1.2 million. Awesome. And I want to point out that these are the kind of problems where if you have math on the exam, it looks scary if you don't know what GIM is. If you get like freaked out because you're like gross income multiplier income, oh, the big numbers, stop it. That was not that hard. You know that a gross income multiplier, just take the GIM times the gross rent. It is so much easier. I basically said 3 times 2 is 6. But we can't panic. We just got to do it. All right. 86. A parcel of land is a half mile by 7,920 feet. The price is $2,500 per acre. How much is the land worth? Very good test question. So in a case like this, I want to draw it out. We got a parcel of land. And we're going to assume that it's square. So we know one side is a half mile and the other is 7,920 feet. Well, this is in words, like half mile. This is a number. So let's get that half mile into square feet, or into not square feet, but into feet. A mile is 5,280 feet. Or you can remember it as 5 tomatoes. So 5280, 5 tomatoes. So we're going to take that 5280 and we're going to divide it by 2. And that is going to be 2,640 feet. That's this side. And then this side is 7,920 feet. So to find area is going to be our width times our depth, or our length times width, whatever you want to call it. But we're doing one side by the other side. So I'm going to take the 2,640, multiply it by the 7,920, and that's going to give me, oh, good gosh, that's a big number. I'm looking at it, I'm like, woo, that's a lot. But let me do that one more time. I got like a 20 million number. But let's make sure I'm right. I know the math is right that I'm doing. So 2640 times 7920. Yeah, that tells us we have 20,908,800 square feet. It is not just you all. When I get a big, huge number like that on my calculator, I go, wait, did I type that right? Because that seems okay. That seems extraordinarily large. And that's okay. We're just going to keep on going because I know area equals length times width. I know 5280 is how many feet are in a mile. And they told me the 7920. I can't have messed this up. So now I know if there's a total 20,908,000 square feet, I need to know how many acres that is. We know an acre has 43,560 square feet. I want to know how many of these can go into 20 million. So what do I do to do that? I take the 20,908,800 and I divide it by 43,560. That is going to give me, and this is drum roll, please. Let's see if we get the right number. 43,560. I got 480 acres. Now, 480 acres at 2,500 per square feet. I got 1,200,000 as our answer, which matches D. I don't know, y'all. You know, I like math somewhat, but don't always get it right the first time. Let's see what we got. Hey, we got it right. We got it right. Boop, boop, doop, deep, boop. We got it right. Yay! Yay! I love it when we get it right. I love it when I get it right anyway. I don't know about y'all, but it is always a win for me when I get some math right. You know, I wanted to try something. What happens if I do this button? Or what if I want to see like there? I don't know. Can you all see? Look, that still doesn't, I don't know. Do, do, do. It's supposed to be showing me, who knows? Caroline, I see your dancing person. I see you there. All right. I don't like that. I like when I can see what everything is going on there. Let's do 87. Yeah. We could go back to 86. No, let's do 87. I tease. A property is zoned in a protected wetland area that allows 30% coverage of the land on the property. The home built on it takes up 20% and a shed takes up another 5%. The owners are looking to install a 500 square foot deck in the backyard. If the lot is 1/3 of an acre, what would the total land coverage be, including the deck addition? All right, let's be honest. That's a lot of math. But I would actually say this is a great problem that applies to what's going to happen when you all get out there in the real field. Because it is true. Let's imagine you have, a lot. Dude. And on that lot, let's imagine this is a street here. And then you have a lot here and you have a lot there. Mm. Well, what I know is that if I were to go in, if I own that lot and I just cemented it. I mean, I took all of this lot and I cemented all of it. Pretend like that's cement. I'm like, I want to use this like a giant basketball court. Well, then what I could do is I could do it, but that water, it's called an impervious surface. And let me make it so you can understand what it says. It's called an impervious surface because that cement, like when you go to a parking lot and it's rained a lot and then the water just stands there. Well, that would happen on this house's property, and then all the water would flood the neighbors, and you can't do that. You can't make it. You can't do anything to your lot that's going to, cause floods on the neighbor's lot. Absolutely not. So most municipalities have rules about how much of this land can I, really build on so that we have enough grass or dirt or whatever it is to soak up any water that comes down, just normal rain. In this case, they're saying, look, you can cover up to 30% of the land. So let's start with that. The problem says the lot is 1/3 of an acre. So if this was a brand new lot and you were my agent and, well, not new lot, but it was a lot that I was going to put a new house on. Let's figure out how much of this lot could be impervious surface. So if an acre is 43,560 and we want 1/3 of that, I'm just going to divide it by 3. And that's going to give me 14,520. That's the feet and 1/3. That's the square feet. And 1/3 of an acre. Okay. So I can put impervious surface, or I can put that cement on 1/3 of that because it's, well, not really 1/3, but 30%. So I'm going to take the 14,520 and divide and multiply it by 30%. That is going to give me 4,356. Not money. That is not money. I just write money so much. That's how many square feet can be covered by the cement. So let's say I bought this lot. It's 1/3 of an acre. And I'm like, hey, I want to build a house on this. All right. Well, your house, the footprint of your house is not going to be allowed to be any larger than 4,356 square feet. It just can't be. And then that means your house can't be that big because you need to have sidewalk. You might have a deck. I'm hoping you have a driveway, anything that's going to be paved or whatever, or anything where the rain can't get to the dirt, that can't happen. So your house would have to be a little smaller than that. So we know that number. Now, the home built on it takes up 20%, and the shed takes up another 5%. And the owners want to install a 500 square foot deck in the backyard. What would be the total land coverage? What would the total land coverage be, including the deck addition? So if the home built on it takes up 20%, if I said 14,520 times 20%, that's going to be 2,904. All right. And we got a shed that takes up 5%. So that would be 14,520 times 5%. And I could have added it together and said 25%, but I like to do it step by step so this makes sense for everybody. So that'd be 14,520 times 5%. That's 726. And then you'd have the 500 square foot deck. I'm going to add all those together. So the 500 plus the 726 plus the 2,904. That is all 4,130. All right. So we know 4,130 is how much of this lot, the house, the shed, and this deck they would install would be. And it wants to know, well, what percent of this is of the land? 4,130, 4,130 square feet is what percent of the lot. Well, we know that the total lot, and this is why I do extra math sometimes, we know the total lot, the total 30% of the lot should be 4,356. So whatever our answer is, it needs to be less than 30%, right? And just right there, I can eliminate two answer choices. If 30% of the lot is 4,356, ah ha ha, 4356, 45. Anyway, if if that's 30%, 4130 has to be less than that. The question is it 25.7% or is it 28.8%? Right there, you could now guess and get a 50-50 chance of getting this right. Or if you feel comfortable in your math skills, what you could say is 4130 is what percent of 14,520. Another way to look at that would be to say 14,520 times what percent equals 4130. That's not very clear now, is it? Boop, 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 boop. Either way, what I'm going to do to get my answer is say 4130 divided by 14,520, and that gives us an answer of 0.28. So our answer is C, 28.8. And I kind of ran out of space there, but you can see this goes to there. That's a lot of math. And I will be honest, and you know I say this to people all the time. You don't have to do all the math. I mean, I want you to understand the math concepts, but when I go to take my Michigan exam, I have this problem, I'll be like, absolutely not. Not today, Satan, not at this moment. Because yes, I can do it clearly, but there's so many numbers and it takes so much time. Some of these problems are a lot faster. Get the low hanging fruit. Or if you see a problem like this, even though you've just seen me do it and you don't ever, just don't do it. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Like, that's just, it's okay. It's okay. You're just trying to pass. It doesn't have to be perfect. So, and you can tell anybody that I said that. Yes, I want you to know the math. You don't have to get all the math right in order to pass, but you really should understand it. Plus, this idea of impervious surface that I just told you all about, that is something real, whether you're going into commercial or residential. I've known people, they're like, oh yeah, I want to put in this big basketball court in my backyard. Seriously? That may not work, bub, because of the impervious surface. Number 88. Oh, we just had two math questions or three math questions. A retired couple is on a fixed income that covers their basic living expenses. They own their own home and would like additional income to travel and spend on experiences that they've always wanted to have. They have plenty of equity built up in their property. What type of loan should they consider? Well, this problem says they own their own home. And then it says they have plenty of equity built up. Well, that is the definition. Oh, you don't see the page? Let me refresh. Boop, boop. Did that help? Let me refresh again. Caroline, Merrill, did that help? Can you see it now? Nothing yet? Well, that's just weird. I can see it. Let's stop the share. Boom. And hey, let's try it again. Where did I go? Sometimes Zoom is not always. Where'd you go, Zoom room? Oh, sweet Lord, sweet baby Jesus. Why are you playing around with my emotions, Zoom? All right, let's try this again. What is going on? I can see it on my side. And now let's try this. Hmm, I don't know. What is going on? All right, let's try one more thing here. I will get it to work, I promise. I just don't know why it's not. It has disappeared on me. Where are you, Zoomer? Okay, now let's try this. Boom, share. Let me know if you can see it now. Because of course, I'm having technical difficulties. God was like, you get snow today and you get this. Yay, you can see it now. Woo, 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 woo. Pull over that. Woo. Okay, that's enough of me singing to myself. But sorry about that. I don't know. You saw I was just writing the problem. I was literally just writing the problem and then you all couldn't see it. Why? Why, Zoom? Why do you play with my emotions? Okay, back to it. Boom. Sear 88. Now that you can see it, this problem says you got this couple and they own their home. And then it says they have plenty of equity built up. But here's the thing, y'all. If you own it outright, all the equity is yours. So let's say I had a house worth $200,000, but I took out a loan for $150,000 to buy it. That means when I did the day I bought that house, I only had $50,000 in equity. Equity is the money that is in the value of the home that you wouldn't owe to the bank or anybody else if you sold it. So by definition, you would own all the equity. So it says, what type of loan should they consider? They want income. These people want additional income. So our answer is actually, is it a home equity line of credit, a reverse mortgage, a wraparound loan, or a bridge loan? Our answer is actually going to be, make it here, a reverse mortgage. That is a reverse mortgage. Why? A reverse mortgage. So let's say this couple's house was worth $400,000. If they had a loan on it, they would be making payments to pay off their loan. In a reverse mortgage, what makes it reverse is that the bank says, hey, we're going to give you monthly monies. Maybe we'll pay you $1,500 a month from your equity. We'll give you $1,500 every month. So after month one, you just owe us $1,500. After month two, you would owe us $3,000. After month three, you would owe $4,500. Then, and it's so morbid, then when you die, or if you decide to sell it, you pay off what we gave you. We're giving you an advance on your equity because you don't want to just sell it outright, perhaps. They do want to travel, but maybe they want to have a home base. So the bank gives them monthly money, and then those monies are due either when they die or if they sell the house later on. That's why our answer is reverse mortgage. A home equity line of credit would mean the bank, well, you know what? I'm not going to say that a home equity line of credit is a terrible idea, but then they're going to get all their monies at once, and it doesn't sound like that's what they want. They want to have income. I would say the key word here is income. If you just take out a home equity line of credit, then yeah, you get this big block of money, but you're back to making monthly payments. And making monthly payments is the opposite of an income. I mean, yeah, you get the money, but then you got to make monthly pay. That's not what they're looking for. A wraparound loan would be, a wraparound mortgage would be they sell the house to somebody else, and then that person makes a payment, and the original couple uses that payment to pay off their loan. Interesting concept. And that's not what we're going to do. They don't want to sell their house. And a bridge loan is usually something you get when you need to sell one house and then buy another. That's not what we're looking for either. So great vocab, but there you go. So yeah, in theory, Muriel, most people don't get all the way to they have all their equity gone. But yes, so let's say my grandparents are gone. Let's say this was my grandparents and they did this. And let's say that their house was worth $400,000, but they got this. When they passed, just like in the notebook, they just went to sleep holding hands and, they're gone. But if that happened, let's say I owe them, $28,000. So let's say they'd gotten the equivalent of $28,000 over the years. Right? When they died, I would need to pay back that $28,000. If I don't have it, if their estate, meaning, everything they have when they, if they don't have that $28,000, I'm going to need to sell the house to pay it back. That money comes back to them. So in theory, there you go. That would be hard to pay back if they're in a fixed income, which is why a reverse mortgage is great. It's not owed until they're gone. Your kids got to worry about it at that point. So there you go. And it would be it's hard to pay back. You're using the equity. You know the house is worth so much more than what you're getting a month that you can cover that. So you all both made great points. All right. And next question. Which of the following statements is true based on the Uniform Electronic Transaction Act, otherwise known as, I say Utah, but it's UETA? Well, we've got A, electronic signatures are voidable. B, electronic signatures are valid if all parties to a contract have agreed to their use. C, electronic signatures are always valid. Or D, electronic signatures are illegal. Well, the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act basically says, hey, you can use an electronic signature the same way you would, what we call a wet signature when there's paper and ink. When I first started in the early 2000s, people were still barely understanding, oh yeah, I have to fax everything over. I mean, faxes were like, oh yeah, that's awesome. It's only been in the last, 15, 20 years that I can sign a contract on my phone. I can do an electronic signature, and that is legal. So our answer is not electronic signatures are illegal. That's not true. And it's not because it's electronic that it's voidable. Now we're down to B and C. And the better answer here is B, because the signatures are valid as long as everybody is okay with it. Someplace in the contract, it has to say, and I'm agreeing to electronic signatures. So there you go. Good job, ladies. All right. Number 90. A buyer's agent has helped a buyer to find a home. Okay. The buyer has expressed concern about the possible presence of radon. What should the buyer's agent do in this case? A, recommend the buyer to question the sellers about it. Could you imagine? Hey, Miss Agent, do you think there's radon? I don't know. You should ask the sellers. But no, that's your job, agent. You're supposed to help me figure things out. So I think we can all agree that's not going to be the right answer. That's not sufficient here. B, recommend that the buyer purchase a test kit for radon. Okay, that's not terrible, but there's other ways to test radon as well. C, recommend the buyer request a professional inspection for radon. I like that one. We know it's not D. You don't just do nothing. Now remember, when you're taking this exam, it's the best answer choice. B isn't wrong exactly, but C is so much of a better answer. Recommend that they get a professional inspection. And then if they don't want to pay, then at the very least, go ahead and get a home one. But that is a much better answer. Like it. All right, 91. Grab some water. Mhm. Which of the following describes when an offer becomes a binding contract? Which of the following describes when an offer becomes a binding contract? Is it A, when an offer contract is signed, accepted by the offeree, seller or buyer, and delivered physically or electronically back to the offeror, the seller or buyer? Good Jesus. That was a lot. That was how many parentheses could you have in one problem? When an offer is signed and accepted by the offeree and delivered back to the offeror. Once you take out all those parentheses, that's not bad. An offer could become, is it B, when the seller counteroffers the buyer's offer and the buyer receives it? C, when both parties agree to a sales price? Or D, when an offer, the contract, is signed by the buyer and the seller agreeing to all the terms outlined in the contract? Well, I think you all know that the answer to this one, the better answer to number 91 is, I think the best answer is A, because let's talk about why. Let's eliminate some answers. When the seller counters the offer and the buyer's count, when the seller counter offers the buyer's offer and the buyer receives it. Well, just because the buyer received it doesn't mean you're under contract. The buyer needs to receive the counter offer, agree to it, sign it, and then somebody has to tell the seller that they're under contract. So B is not complete enough. C, when both parties agree to the sales price. Look, we can orally agree to a sales price, but unless we put it in writing, we are not under contract. Now we're down to D. Which of the following describes when an offer becomes a binding contract? Now, D says when an offer is signed by the buyer and the seller agreeing to all of the terms outlined in the contract. I like that answer. But A says when an offer is signed, which is accepted by the offeree and delivered either physically or electronically back to the offeror or the buyer or seller. Oof. This is a hard one. And remember, guys, I told you, whoever wrote these questions, oh no. I mean, my guess, I don't even know. I just, here's why. The problem with A is that it says physically or electronically. What it's not giving you is orally. The more I look at it, it's not saying orally. I mean, and they've gone through so much. Whereas D, the problem with D is where is the delivered or notification? I don't like either answer, and that's okay. I don't have to love every answer choice. But when I'm teaching this, I say that when you want to get under contract in real estate, everybody has to sign the offer. Everybody, everybody on the buyer side, everybody on the seller side. And whoever was the last side to sign the offer needs to tell the other side that you're under contract or that they've signed to be under contract. This is such an important question. I think A is a better answer because at least we have this delivery. But I would want to add physically or electronically, or you just tell them. And some of you all learned about the mailbox rule. Those are all times would it also be under contract. Whereas D, it just says when the signed by the buyer. It could be signed by the buyer, but the buyer, if they never tell the seller they signed it, we're not under contract. I know you just want to pass and get this career going. Girl, I feel you. That's how I feel about my Michigan exam. I just need to take it. So I'm going to say none of the answers are good, but I like A. And really what I want us to remember is, like I said, you need signatures and notification of the signatures. I don't love the question, but it's a great review. All right. Number 92. An appraiser has been hired to value a commercial office building that is fully leased. What approach to appraisal is most appropriate to determine his opinion of value? Is it A, the comparative market analysis, B, the sales or market comparison approach, C, the cost approach, or D, the income analysis approach? Great question. I think you would see something similar to this on the exam. You need to know about these different approaches, and our answer is going to be D, the income analysis approach. That's what we use when the whole point of owning the property is to get income. Right? We know you would use the cost approach if it's a unique property and you don't think you would get enough comps to do the sales comparison approach, because you know you find similar properties and then you say, well, if those properties sold for X, then I think this property is worth Y. And that's what the appraiser says. And then the CMA is what we do as agents. It's not as formal as an appraisal. A CMA and appraisal are not the same. CMAs are done by agents. Appraisals are done by appraisers. So it couldn't have been A either way because appraisers don't do CMAs. Boom. All right. 93. George has no children or immediate family and dies intestate. Dag, George, you ain't got no friends. Your life sounds kind of sad. But George has no children or immediate family and dies intestate. What happens to the real estate property he owned? Is it A, the government takes it, but he said, I'll be his friend, right? If he's got the right type of properties, Caroline, I'm into. I'm right there with you. And if you're watching on YouTube, remember, you all can't see the chat that's coming in the Zoom room. But if you want to be part of the Zoom room, all you have to do is email me and they can make that happen. So what happens to the real estate property he owned when he died, to the real estate property he owned when he dies? Is it A, the government takes it by condemnation under the right of eminent domain? I like that. B, well, I don't like that. Hello, what am I thinking? Don't do this on the test. It is true that eminent domain and condemnation happen where the government takes your property, but this is about him dying intestate, and this is about the government needs it. So I almost just fell for it because I wasn't looking and I wasn't thinking hard enough. Don't do that on the test. It's not A. That is a right answer, but not to this question. That's an answer for another question. B, the government takes it under the right of a sheet. I like that one because if you die with no will and no heirs, it sheets to the state. I'm pretty sure it's B, but let's make sure. C, the court will use an administrator's deed to transfer ownership. No. Or D, the court will use an executor's deed to transfer ownership. Neither of those are correct. Our answer is B. So there you go. Now, I would say the government can be the state. I think this answer would be better if it said the state. Now, the state will get it. Usually they're testing on the right of a sheet. And if they ask, well, how does it work? Then I would say the courts would then use a deed to transfer ownership to the state. But or if there were other people, that he has no children or immediate family. So, and he died intestate, if they could find heirs. Okay, how do you spell heirs again? H-E-I-R-S. So, if they find heirs, then this would be the answer. If there are no heirs, this would be the answer. So I don't know. Usually they're testing you on the sheet. They should have said, what happens to the real estate property he owns? I think a better question would have been, if he has no will and no heirs. I'm assuming, I don't know what they mean by no immediate family. Do you want me to assume there's heirs or not? This is most definitely something you have to know. This idea of a sheet. This is getting picky and saying, well, they didn't say whether or not they had heirs. I would much rather you know about the sheet versus the administrator's deed. That's just me. 94. Which of the following facts about a listed property must never, 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 never be disclosed? Is it a previous owner or resident had HIV or AIDS? I don't even have to go any further. That's the answer. The only way it could be a different answer is if it said you can't say whether somebody had HIV and AIDS, and nor could you mention, I don't know, whether or not there's children. Like you cannot mention whether somebody has or has ever had AIDS on the property or HIV. No, 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 no. But let's just double check our other answers. Actual square footage, you can say that. That a previous owner has passed away, I mean, you could. None of the above, no, no. Even if they ask, you cannot talk about it. Even if they ask, you cannot talk about it. It's always off limits. Always. No exceptions to that. But good question. Good question, ma'am. 95. What statement is true? Should it be which? Which statement is true about home inspection reports? A. Sellers must disclose findings to all potential buyers. No. B. Home inspection reports are the property of the buyer. C. Home inspection reports are the property of the seller. Or D. Home inspection reports are always required. Okay, they're not always required. And a seller doesn't have to disclose everything to all potential buyers. Like some things are material facts, some things are. I wouldn't go with that. But here's the problem. I don't like B or C because a lot of times buyers pay for the home inspection, but sometimes sellers pay for it. I think the best answer is the home inspection belongs to whoever decided to friggin' pay for it. Again, these questions aren't the clearest, but you know what? You get what you pay for. And in this case, it was, free dollars. Free. So I think the better answer, probably more than likely, this is what usually happens, but realize it's not always. All right. 96. Blank are hidden property conditions that are not likely to be discovered through a general review or inspection. Blank are hidden property conditions that are not likely to be discovered through a general review or inspection. Is it A, known facts, B, adverse defects, C, latent defects, or D, material facts? Well, material facts are just something that you want to share. In some states, both the agents and the sellers have to disclose material facts, but some states it's not, right? But material facts are just things that you're supposed to share. I do like the answer latent defects. I'm going to say it's C, latent defects. I think that's the right answer because that's my understanding of latent defects, but I always like to check the other answers to make sure there's not a better one. Adverse defects is another name for material facts. So yeah, we're not including that. And if it's known, then how is it not discovered? Boom, we're going for latent defects. I like the easy ones. 97. A legal document that grants legal rights from one person, the principal, to another, the agent, to sign on their behalf is called. A legal document that grants legal rights from one person to another, usually the principal to the agent, to sign on their behalf is called. A fair trade agreement? No. A deed of trust? No, remember, this is the other name for a mortgage. Very similar, but not the quite same thing. And that's about promising to pay and collateral and blah, blah, blah. Nah. Power of attorney, I like that one. A transfer of rights is not a document. Our answer is C, power of attorney. Good job. Good job. Good job. We need somebody to pass so we can do our song. Ooh, and our answer was C. Let me see. I don't know. Let me see here. Okay, since our answer was C, I can confidently say,
like carrots, and you should too. It goes crunch, 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 and it's good for you. We like carrots, and you should too. It goes crunch, crunch, crunch.
I mean, just be jamming. We be jamming. Boom, doom, 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 doom. We be jamming. Okay, that's enough of that song. Got in my head. 98. An unlicensed assistant gets a call from a listing owner with questions about a contract. Ooh, it's an unlicensed assistant, y'all. What should the assistant do? Well, I don't even, before I even try to answer this question, they want to answer questions about the contract and they're unlicensed. I'm going to go with a big fat no. Absolutely not. If you want to be able to answer questions about that contract, you need a real estate license. So pull the contract and answer the owner's questions. No, not unless you want to get what? Sued. Notify the listing broker to answer the owner's questions. That sounds like a very reasonable next step. Give the owner the buyer's contact information. No, 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 no. We're not trying to have stalkers here. And it's not none of the above because I like B. Notify the listing broker to answer the owner's questions. Boom. 99. We might as well get these last two done, and then we'll start with a new question bank on Friday. Oh, which brought up, somebody had asked if I could do these on Sunday afternoons instead. You all know that right now I'm doing Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Fridays at 3. But I was talking to somebody and they thought it would be better if I did Wednesdays at 8 p.m. so people in Cali could, at least be off work. And then Sundays at 3 so that everybody could kind of have a chance and you're a little less busy. So because I do know that Friday, some people are still at work. Just keep this in mind. Maybe we'll change it to this. Give me your opinions and I'll work on that. So I was talking to somebody, a coach. Guys, a coach. I tell y'all, you should get a coach if you're starting in real estate. I have a coach. So my coach was thinking maybe these would be better times. All right. We'll talk about it for the next couple weeks. Number 99, the blank requires that certain type of contracts be in writing to be legally enforceable. Hello, you're going to be tested on this one. This is a question you must know. What says, hey, certain type of contracts have to be in writing to be legally enforceable? You already know our answer. Yep, there you go, Mariel. She said 100% C. I mean, C, 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 C. You know that one. You see that on the test, you know you're getting it right. And number 100, last but certainly not least, what is the ideal way for a contract to end? What is the ideal way for a contract to end? Is it A, performance, B, substantial performance, C, partial performance, or D, termination? Now it does say ideal. Ideally, I don't want to terminate the contract. And I don't want you didn't perform everything. I don't want partial performance. I don't want substantial. That's not. I want full performance. A, full performance. Final answer. Hey, the answer's A. The answer's A. Hey, the answer's A. All right, guys. Good. Thank you for your patience with my little technical blah, 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 blah. We're going to start some new questions next, Friday. We did a little math today. And as always, if you need me, you know where to find me. I really do enjoy doing this with you all. So bring a friend, tell more people so we can keep doing this. And I think that's it. Y'all, it's snowing here and I'm not a happy camper, but soon and very soon, it will be spring again. And spring, Michigan, summer in Michigan, and fall in Michigan are beautiful. It's this winter crap that sucks. So, having said that, I will see everybody next time. Have an amazing couple of days, and I'll see you.